Hello, everyone, and welcome to a GSPL cooking segment. I today have with me my wonderful friend, Ben, who is going to be preparing a recipe for us and talking about food and how important it is, and just kind of going through some of the discussions about how family and food can go hand in hand and have a big impact on us. And so today we are going to be preparing a little recipe for all of you. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you for having me.
Thank
I'm Ben, and I'm just going to make you guys some roasted vegetables today.
Wonderful, wonderful. Ben so graciously decided to kind of bless us with his presence and welcome us into his domain when it comes to cooking. Immediately when I thought about a cooking segment, I thought about you and just like
Oh,
how important food is to you and how much you use it to care for people. So I really just thought it would be a fun segment for us here today. And so I have a few questions for Ben as we kind of prepare this food, and we'll get to it. So
sure. I'm going to start chopping
you
up this onion.
you start, and if tears come, it's the onion. But my first kind of question for you is, when
Mhm.
did you fall in love with cooking?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I want to say when I was like 12 or 13. That's when I first really fell in love with cooking. More so because of my grandmother. She would cook every Sunday for us, and seeing her just constantly do it, just when she wasn't feeling too well, when she was feeling amazing. Cooking has always just been a part of, like, I guess my family's tradition, or at least on my grandmother's side, where they would just cook, just to show people like, hey, I love you too. And I think I've just adapted that into my own lifestyle now. Whenever I cook for other people, it's just, hey, I love you, here, eat something. And people are so happy just to get a fresh meal. It's it's just a way for me, at least, to keep my family sort of spirit alive by just cooking for others, as cheesy as it may sound.
No, it doesn't sound cheesy at all. I love, I knew the significance of food in kind of like this love language that you have with food, and how you kind of use it to express your love and gratitude for others.
Mhm.
I could say this like as a friend of yours, even just like we live quite a distance away from each other, and like even then it's always talk of like, I could send you cookies, I could like make sure you're doing good, reminding me to go eat something. And like I feel like food in my family and in my household was never as significant
Mhm.
of like a thing that kind of like everyone got together and do. I don't want to say that because I feel like early days, like when I was much younger, maybe, but I
Right.
know just like so much that it definitely has an impact on you. So my second question is actually, what is the significance of cooking in your household? Which I think you kind of answered, but if you can elaborate on it a little bit.
Yeah, sure. My grandmother very much had this tradition of always, you always feed somebody food when they come over. So I have taken that same approach. So, say if a friend is coming over, unless they come by, surprise, surprise, I'm here, I usually will cook something for them. And I don't know, it's just a way, at least for me, to show like I just care about you, and the best way I can do that is by providing you with at least a meal, maybe two if I'm really in the mood, or if I really like you, I'll just be like, here to here's your lunch, and here is dinner for you to take with you on the way home. So I think I don't know, it's always been significant for me. I think now, even more so than before.
And do you think like you as a person within the family are an individual in kind of picking up that importance of providing food for others, or this kind of like love of baking and making food? Or do you think like other family members have kind of fostered that same love?
I know my mother, she sort of had the same mindset, and she learned that from my grandmother. So a lot of it stems just from my grandmother sort of passing it on down to us,
Mm,
just as a way to be like, well, in our family, we cook, for everybody, even if we don't feel like it. And some days I'm like, I don't feel like cooking for myself. But then a part of me is like, well, your grandmother will want you to do it. So get up and go eat some breakfast, eat something that will nourish your body and take on the day.
right. All right. One of the next questions I feel like is moving away a bit from the importance and more of like a personal preference of what you have kind of taken away from your family and this beautiful kind of shared tradition from your grandmother. And you don't have to give any of the secrets away, but are there favorite passed down recipes that you have from your grandmother?
Oh wow. Let's see. Her macaroni and cheese is really, really good. I'm still trying to work on finalizing it because she had about like three different versions of it, and I'm like, I don't know which one to cook. I'll circle back around it. And she also makes this corn pudding as well. And I think that's something my family really enjoyed making. None of us have been able to really crack that recipe, even though she has a recipe for it. None of us have been able to get the consistency right the way that she did. So
Grandma made it special.
she really did. I don't know how she did it, but she did. Every time I try to take a crack at it, it's always it doesn't taste as well as she did, or it's not in the right structure. It's hard to describe it. I gotta see if I have a picture of it so you can see it. But yeah, I think macaroni and cheese, the corn pudding, and what else did she? She make a really good roasted chicken as well. Yeah.
Those are great. I also wanted to kind of talk about it. You mentioning the corn pudding is kind of one of the things that is, I feel like, sparking me to talk about it. Is that, I mean, you and I have discussed at length, because of your love of food, our
Mm-hmm.
differences just as like Canadian and American, and some of the food differences that we do have, and like realizing we don't have the same things um
Yeah.
from those two things, from our different kind of countries.
Hmm.
Do you have any kind of dishes that aren't representative of America that like you're interested in learning, or that you are interested in cooking or have cooked?
Oh wow. Non-American dishes. Let's see. That's a hard one. I want to learn how to make what's that? It's gravy, mashed potatoes. Is it poutine or
Uh,
I can't pronounce
like
it.
fries. So it's gravy,
Yeah.
fries, and cheese. You would knock it out of the ballpark.
Yeah, that's what I want to make. I feel like I don't know where to begin with it, even though I know it's such a, I don't want to say simple recipe.
It really
I don't
is a
have
simple
anyone
recipe.
to like judge it and tell me like, oh, you did this well, because we don't have that here in the States.
I imagine anything you would add to it would just like elevate it. I feel
I
like
don't know.
with American dishes, I feel like a lot of them are like, the corn pudding is so interesting to me because I feel like a lot of American cuisine uses corn.
Yeah, it's weird. We definitely do. I try to stay away from it, but a lot of the time some of it does use corn, or we usually have it on the side a lot of the times as just like a side dish. So sorry, these are chickpeas. They're just, I don't want them to roll away.
No, that's fine.
But yeah, we have a lot of corn. It's good. I like it. Like I'll just eat regular corn on the cob. And so do a lot of like my family members and even my friends. We all just really love corn. I don't know if why. We just we just do. And it's, there's always one of the few dishes I know I can make, and everybody be like, oh yeah, I'll take some corn. It's like, oh, okay, cool.
Taking some of your kind of passed down recipes from your family, is there
Mm-hmm.
any of the dishes that you think you have perfected? And then there will be a follow-up question.
Oh, in terms of perfecting a dish, I want to say fried chicken for me at least. Like I think I finally surpassed my family in making it because it takes about a good day to make it. Like I usually put it in buttermilk and have it just sit in that to let the chicken get all nice and is it acidy? I think it's acid, I believe. That makes it just more crunchy or more chewier. Sorry for the description there, but yeah, no, definitely fried chicken. I think the best compliment I had was people thinking I brought it from the store, and then me being able to say, no, I made that at my house by
Nice.
myself. So
I
yeah,
unfortunately will never be able to experience it, but I'm gonna get
that's
someone
okay.
to eat it beside me.
I will work on making a version of fried chicken for you. I got to learn how to make some more tofu centric dishes. I think that's one of my cooking goals for this year is to just make more uh plant based meals. Yeah.
Which is
I was like, I don't know
always
what the word is.
like I love that about you, in that like you're always like willing to experiment or like learn specifics for people around you. I think it does speak to the fact that like food really is like a love language for you.
Oh, absolutely. I can't stand to see my friends not eating when I make something, so it just fuels me more to say, "No, I will figure out a way to cook something for you. We're friends, so I'm going to feed you." And I don't know, people seem to like it.
I mean, I don't think anybody is ever mad. Even people that don't necessarily think about food are like ever mad about someone making them something.
No, if anything, I've had friends be like, "You made all this for me?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Do you like it? And they're like, "I love it, thank you." And it's like, "Oh yeah, that's that's why I cook." That right there, that reaction of just, I guess, the gratitude that comes from people that are, happy to receive a meal. And I don't know, I just love that feeling.
I think too, like it, like societally and like culturally, it's like really taken for granted what a nice meal can do for someone, and kind of like this weird joy that it does bring people, even if there's like a little more thought put into the meal in some capacity.
Yeah, I experienced that at a convention I attended one time. I brought my friend Maki a plate of food, and she's a cosplayer, and she hadn't eaten all day. So when she saw me with the food, she just broke down in tears. She was like, "Thank you so much, Ben." And I'm like, "I didn't do anything. I just brought you food." She said, "Exactly. That's what you did." And I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
all right." I didn't realize it would, you know, hit someone on that much of an emotional level of just feeding them a plate of food I made from home.
And I mean, like, if you think about it in those terms as well, is that like sometimes we take it for granted that it is so easily accessible to us, and that like even when you're kind of like, I'm bad for this. I think I eat like a lot of I always message you in the morning and be like, I had toast. And you're like, that's not a meal. um, just like even taking for granted that like extra preparation of a meal and what that can do for you, and like how much that could actually change your day.
Hmm.
Just like those extra vegetables or those eggs in the morning.
Yeah, I think now that I just cook more on my own, I think I appreciate the effort I put into just making myself a solid breakfast because I could easily just go for a protein shake. But then there's a part of me that's like, no, let's get a little bit more food in there afterwards or make sure I eat a solid meal. But yeah.
My follow-up question to the you perfecting the fried chicken. Do you
Mhm.
have like a legacy recipe that you would like to leave behind?
Oh man. I think snickerdoodles if I can. I think that is I think that might be the recipe for me at least
You
because
just like
every time
made
I
some
had
the
them,
other day, didn't you?
yeah, it was yeah, I did. Yeah. I think that is the yeah, I'm sitting here nodding my head like, yeah, that's the one. Like that is that I think that's the recipe I would love to leave behind because I've never had no one's ever been disappointed in getting snickerdoodles before. And I think that's great. I am so sorry for my other phone going off,
Oh no, don't be at all.
but yeah. Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and mix these veggies a bit. Get my hands in there. Just kind of roll them around. Make sure everything gets a little seasoning you put on. A little salt, pepper, paprika, garlic powder, and some vegetable oil. That's about it.
Nice.
You can do this your own way. I already got my oven heated up. I'm gonna put this in the oven real quick.
Sounds good.
So give me a second.
Here we are waiting for our wonderful vegetables to be prepared. My question for you as we kind of like wait during this time is, do you think food has such a kind of significant impact on you because these waiting time periods were like times where you would like bond with your grandma or kind of like, it was like that downtime in between like the anticipation of like waiting for the food.
Yeah, I think yeah, I think so. I think it really helped me get closer with I know my grandmother for sure. And I know me and my mother used to bake cakes all the time together. Like she would get the little box cake already with we just had to have like eggs and butter and water. And we would just bake a cake almost every Sunday, even though we didn't have to. It was just like something we did together. And it was nice. So yeah, I think food has helped me just have a stronger connection to the women in my life because a lot of the men in my family they just did not cook sadly
They
like
did
they're
not
very no
understand the love of food.
they didn't they loved eating the food but in terms of in terms of like putting in the effort to make a really good meal no that just became me later on where I was like I'll cook everything it's fine we're not eating hot dogs again no.
Like I have a very specific idea in my head of like kind of like what that entails because I feel like despite like not having the same strong connection
Mhm.
to food as you do or necessarily having like women or men in my life that kind of fostered that in any of us. I
Right.
still like remember certain aspects of like making Rice Krispie squares and like putting on a
Oh
movie
yeah.
and like waiting for it. And I think that's like a really interesting like bonding ritual and just like
Mm.
a really interesting way to kind of bond over food because I feel like a lot of people come together at parties and eat food and bond over the food they eat together, but
Mhm.
it's different when like you make it and kind of like share in that experience. So when making those recipes, is there like a staple ingredient in your house?
Oh man. I want to say I was about to say rice, but I don't think would rice count? I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
I was
If
gonna say,
like
yeah, I guess rice would count as a, like, I think that's the staple, one of the staples there. Definitely, I say lemons and green onions as well, because I usually put that in an omelet or use it to fancy up any dish I make. Sometimes just sprinkle a little green onion and it
and I
looks a
think
bit fancier.
I feel like all three of those are like super versatile. Like the amount of meals that you can make with rice and like the amount of meals you can make with green onion. Like all of those feel very much like they aren't limited in what you can kind of create with them. And I think rice is kind of like that interesting ingredient because it's very much internationally just like loved, right?
Oh yeah,
Like
I don't think I've met anybody who didn't like rice.
yeah,
It's hard,
it's hard.
very hard to dislike rice.
I mean, like leave in the comments, I guess, if you don't like rice.
I'll make you a good rice dish if you dislike it. I'll
That's
make it the
that's it.
way you should eat it. So
Nice. Is there, let's go with this question. In your household, do you think there is a flavor palette that is more popular?
ooh, I think my grandfather loved a lot of barbecue. Like that was his go-to, like anything. So I almost say Southern here in the States has a certain, like, I guess the best way to describe it would be something like fried sometimes or something very like rich and savory, very much. Like that's the way my grandfather loved eating. Like he always loved something sweet. He has more of a sweet tooth than I do. And I thought I had one, but no, my grandfather, he could eat like a slice of cake every day if he wanted to. And that's just, that's how he was raised and grew up, just eating a lot of sweets. And, he enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But I think now that it's just me, I think my palate's just everywhere because I'm willing to like try something out. I'm willing to try something different, something completely out of my like left field, like even shrimp, or I think I tried bison one time. It was not the best of times.
But yeah, I think it's so fascinating to kind of get to explore those different types of ingredients that you're not necessarily used to or that like you didn't grow up with. And for me, I know that like curry is a dish that like I don't know how I was living without it for most of my life, because it's kind of everything I want in a dish. Like it's hearty and it's filling and it's warm and like I like the spiciness, and I think all of those things just like encapsulate what a good meal is for me. And so to kind of like know that other people see those things kind of differently, I've been like watching a lot of MasterChef recently.
That's fine.
And so like hearing like kind of like the makeups of a good dish, I sometimes go like, oh, that doesn't sound appetizing to me at all. But then you remember like, oh, like for someone, this is like their meal.
Yeah.
Do you have the meal for you?
Oh, man, I think that might be the hardest question I've ever had. I don't think I have one because I think my mood like shifts with the season sometimes, like depending on what's in season, then I'm all in. Like right now, I'm down with eating like chili, soups, anything that really keeps me just warm. But if it's spring or summer, then I'm just like, yeah, I'll eat salads all the time. It's salad season. Let's put some tomatoes. Let's get some cucumbers.
Ben's like, changing with the seasons. That's what's happening.
Exactly. Like I just try to eat with what's in season and just make the most out of it because I know like stuff that's in season is going to constantly be in stock. So it just helps me shop a bit smarter by going for those things and challenging myself to just make a different dish altogether.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think I agree. Like, I think I've been like eating so much curry because it's been so cold here that I'm just like, this is warming me. But in the summertime, like I feel like I go for like cucumber based things or
Yeah,
things like that. So I agree.
just eat with the seasons.
Do you have a favorite dish though?
Oh,
Is there something like, is there a dish? Maybe we'll narrow it down. Is there a dish that like to this day you think about?
and just like I just have to have it. Let's see.
Or you like had it and you were like even to this day, every once in a while you go,
It just
remember that time I ate that thing at that place and it was just like,
oh man, I think that's me with like orange chicken, but uh not from like one of the fast food places, more for like a carry out that has like orange chicken is like the one that's a few minutes away from me. And every so often I'll crave it. I'm like, man, I haven't had this dish from this place in a few like months. Let me see if it's still good. And it's still great. It's still like the chef back there still has it. It tastes great as always. It just has that almost nostalgia taste for me, where it's like,
mm,
wow, this it just takes me back to like a time where everything was a bit simpler for me. And I think that's also what I really like about cooking certain dishes for like a few of my friends, is that it just takes them back to when they were younger. And I think if I can accomplish that with my cooking, then I'm doing something right.
yeah, that's like a really powerful thing, I think. Like if you can like nail a recipe that makes someone go like, oh, I remember this time.
It's hard. It's
Yeah.
not, it hasn't been easy. I think I had that experience with my friend Tina one time when I was making a chicken adobo, and she's from the Philippines. So that's pretty big over there.
Mm.
And she was like, yo, I didn't know you made something like this. I'm like, I'm trying it out. And she said, well, you're doing it pretty good. And she was like, I just see the garlic. I see you using the certain type of parts of the chicken that they use to make it. And it felt like a huge honor because that's something she grew up with. And it
Mm.
felt good just to honor that tradition of like, this is what you grew up with. I want to show just respect to you and your culture by trying to just make it that way as
Yeah.
close as I can.
No, and I think that's what's so fascinating about cooking and specifically your love of cooking, because you do put so much heart into it and speaking about it and like how honored you feel when you can do those things for your friends. And I, I think it's just so fascinating that food can have just like such a strong identity and a strong like
Mhm.
cultural identity. And I think it's why it was like so important for me to kind of talk to you about your love of cooking because you have such a
Oh,
strong tie to food and like what it represents for you. And do you think that your love of food and the way kind of your grandmother and your mother and yourself included in that foster this kind of love and nurturing within your food is like pretty woven into Black culture?
I would say so, yeah, because my neighbor across the street, she's also Black as well, and she's from like North Carolina, and they very much take care of each other. And I think that's something I learned from her as well. It's like she'll cook for like 10 to 15 people. I'm like, you don't have to cook this much food. She's like, no, I do it because what if someone comes over and they're hungry? I'm like, okay, I get it now that I'm older. Like when I was younger, I was like, you don't need to cook this much food. Now that I'm older, I'm like, oh, I have the same mindset too. What if five people, my friends show up and want to eat? I got to make sure they can, they're fed. And I think that's really where it sits just for a lot of Black families. It's like we always want to make sure, not just our families taken care of, but our neighbors are taken care of and our friends are taken care of as well. And I think the best way to do that is through food because everybody needs to eat,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, that's great. it kind of like makes me feel like you even speaking about it makes me feel about oh, my friend Andrew. His mom is from like a very small nomadic tribe in China, and they traveled a lot through India as well, and so the recipes kind of overlap. But she makes these really specific deep fried treats when we
Oh,
go
that sounds
over.
good.
You would love them. And she always makes them when we come over. And it's so like, we said we liked them, like we were in love with them once. And
Mhm.
every time she thinks of us, she's just like, I'm going to make them this.
Oh, I'm the same way too.
Yeah, and
I am the same way too. Everybody's like, Ben, you got any more snickerdoodles? I'm like, yes, I do.
and like, yeah, I love that about like, I think it's something that is taking what we're kind of learning from our grandparents and our parents and sticking with it and like maintaining it as like a cultural presence, because I feel like it's a little bit lost.
Oh, yeah. I don't see too many people cooking nowadays. That breaks my heart a little bit. But
yeah,
I
like
don't know. I like to just keep that tradition. If it's one tradition I thoroughly want to keep alive, it's just cooking for other people.
I think too, like I don't want to say it's everyone, because like I don't think it is, because obviously
Yeah.
people like you exist, and I feel like a lot of people like you do exist out there in the world. But I do think about how much that has like generationally changed, that like you would go over to like someone who is an elder in your family, and they would have like two pies for you to choose
Yeah.
from. And like,
Oh yeah.
and I think maybe that becomes like a where we are in the world a little bit, like where we kind of sit in that, like no one has time to kind of do that anymore. And I think one of the nice things about the pandemic resurgence was kind of like all these people baking bread.
Yeah, it was amazing. I remember that time. That was beautiful. Oh, the veggies are just about done. Do you want me to switch cameras?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get to those veggies.
But here are our vegetables, nice and roasted, ready to be eaten. Ah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming to hang out with me. I'm, one day we have to get together and just, I don't know, cook up a storm.
That would be that's the dream.
I think so. We gotta get, it's gonna be you, me, Aaron. We're gonna do some baking. We're gonna do some cooking. I'm gonna learn a lot from both of you because I have no idea what I'm doing. But I hope, like me, this segment was informative. I hope it was an interesting discussion about food and the importance it can have on oneself and identity, and that Ben, at the end of the day, inspired you to kind of take a minute and actually think about your meal, plan it out. Got any words to sign off on, Ben?
Yeah, just take it a day at a time and eat your vegetables, please. I beg of you. Just one meal a day, eat some broccoli. You can just roast them, eat them, be done. Just please, I beg you, just eat more greens, or just eat a plate of food. Just eat a solid meal. That's what I ask out of you. One solid meal, please, and thank you.
Well, Ben, thank you so much for talking to me today about food, and it was a real pleasure.
Anytime. The honor was all mine. Trust me, I can talk about food all day.